A very good morning to all of you. We've had a charged morning because we've had some very eminent people joining us. So thank you for waiting. And although I'm merely a functus officio who has completed his term, I deem it an honor and privilege to share and deliver this welcome address. In September 2023, we started the Indian Society for Universal Dialogue under the aegis of the School of Excellence in Law, with the aim of establishing a student society modeled on the lines of the Oxford Union to promote the freedom of speech, debate, and dialogue of contemporary issues and ideas. On the same occasion, we had launched the India at 100 series, which is our flagship program that is focused on a comprehensive exploration of India's journey over the course of a century through a series of dialogues. Having said that, as on the 26th of November 2024, India has completed 75 years of having been a constitutional democracy, and that is something. In 1949, when the Constitution of India was adopted, a state was created committed to the ideas of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, of secularism, democratic socialism, etc. But it was also a time when almost every newspaper in the world would carry headlines predicting the balkanization or the disintegration of the Indian nation. Today, 75 years on, India's tryst with destiny has endured, and much to the credit of the judiciary, which has time and again, in the words of Justice Patanjali Shastri, stood like the sentinel on the key way, protecting the Constitution, giving life to it, making it a living, breathing document that transforms itself with the times. In the broad narrative of the success of our Constitution, a question arises as to how have we progressed, or what have we done when it comes to securing gender justice? What do we mean when we talk about gender justice, especially in the Indian context, given so many recent developments that have taken place, and what bearing does this have in the future of our nation? These are some of the questions that we will be discussing today. And as a part of our conversation, we have with us perhaps some of the finest minds from the bar and bench of the High Court of Madras who have joined us this morning. None of them require an introduction because their reputation always precedes them. However, I'm pleased to introduce Justice Prabha Sridevan, former judge of the High Court of Madras, who, over an illustrious tenure between 2000 and 2010, her ladyship has passed several notable judgments concerning intellectual property, particularly the celebrated case of Novartis versus the Union of India, and she is known for her decisions concerning constitutional law and fundamental rights. She served as the chairman of the Intellectual Property Law Board in Chennai, and Justice Prabha Sridevan has been named as one of the 50 most important people in the world of intellectual property. We also have with us Honorable Justice P.T. Asha, who was elevated to the bench in the year 2018, making an unmistakable presence at the High Court of Madras on the civil appellate side. Her ladyship is a specialist in revision petitions and usually finishes her day after having heard at least a minimum of 100 cases. She has been long associated with the Women Lawyers Association and was awarded the Outstanding Woman Lawyer of the Year. We also have with us Honorable Justice Anand Venkatesh, who was elevated to the bench in the year 2008 as well. After having an all-round practice in the law, a man of multifarious talents, Justice Anand Venkatesh is most famously known for his notable and unique judgments, especially the continuing mandamus in the landmark case of Sushma versus Commissioner of Police, where he wrote that ignorance is no justification to normalize any form of discrimination. And last but not the least, we have with us Mr. Sriram Panchu, who is a distinguished senior advocate with almost 50 years of experience in the bar, a man who has single-handedly been instrumental in fostering mediation in the dispute resolution system of India. He was also responsible for establishing India's first court-annexed mediation center at the High Court of Madras, making mediation accessible to litigants. And he was also appointed by the Honorable Supreme Court of India to mediate the Ram Janmabhoomi and Babri Masjid dispute. To moderate this highly charged panel that has gathered today, we have with us the wonderful Dr. Swarna Rajagopalan, founder and managing trustee of the Prajnya Trust, which is a non-profit organization that has done phenomenal work in gender equality, peace, justice, and security. Dr. Swarna Rajagopalan is also a renowned political scientist, an academician who is currently a visiting professor at University, United States of America. Her experience and credentials make her the best person to moderate this conversation. At the outset, I welcome all of you, sirs and madam. I would be terribly amiss if I do not mention the guests who have joined us today: the Honorable Consul General of France, Monsieur Etienne Roland-Pieg, Mr. David Eggleston, the Deputy Consul General of Australia, Senior Advocate R. Parthasarathy, who is one of the patrons of today's program, Mr. Nandan Balsavar, architect, and many others who have joined us. Thank you so much. And of course, my dear student friends, members of the Indian Society for Universal Dialogue, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, my warmest welcome to all of you. Without any further delay, I would love to hand over the rostrum to Dr. Swarna to carry forward the conversation. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody. It's always heartening to see a full room at 10:30 or 11 in the morning, because as someone who's organized a lot of programs in the last 18 years, I know that empty rooms are actually the norm. So congratulations to the organizers, and also thank you for this encouraging vision. I have the enviable and unenviable task of moderating a panel of distinguished speakers who have a lot to say. Each of them could really hold forth for an hour and a half on this topic. I mean, based on life experience, work experience, learning, and so on. But we're going to do this in 2 quick rounds. I have a very opening question. They will each of them answer it for about 8 minutes. Then we will move on to another quick question. Essentially, the point of this is to give you something to talk about when we open the floor. And we will start at that end and make our way towards me, one by one. So my first question is actually related to this idea of gender justice. I don't remember hearing this phrase growing up or studying political science or reading Indian politics. I think its entry into our daily vocabulary is more recent than the idea of gender justice. We have a very clear idea of fair, unfair, dispossessed, disenfranchised, oppressed, but this term. So I would like each of them, from their point of view, to recall in whichever way they would like what they have seen this come to mean, how they have seen this idea or this phrase come into use in their years. And this is the 8-minute round.
Good morning. Thank you, School of Excellence, for inviting us for this interesting discussion. Swarna said that the word gender justice has come into our consciousness not from a very long time. And I would like to say this, law is what was formulated to bring about order, and language is the vehicle through which we express law, describe the order, and in fact the whole world. So if only recently we have started thinking in terms of gender justice, that itself speaks a lot. I will give one interesting anecdote. And before that, I will say, I know that man, woman are not the only 2 genders. But I will speak from the point of view of the woman, and you must understand that when I am doing that, it is for all the non-majoritarian genders. Yes? This was at a function, and I was sitting next to one of the celebrated women who has worked for children with special needs, Jaya Krishnaswamy. And a woman was on the stage, and she was wearing pants, which was traditionally a male attire, okay? And she said that I don't believe in wearing what is called the feminine garb. I can proudly say I'll wear this. So Jaya murmurs to me, will a day come when a boy will stand up on stage and say, I don't believe in pants, I will proudly wear a skirt. So she said that when the day comes when a man can comfortably say, I will walk around with a pavade or a sari, that will be the day. And she is right. That tells us how we construct gender in our mind. I don't know if you have seen the movie Queen's Gambit. Today chess is the buzzword, and in that this girl Beth, she wants to join a competition, and she goes up to the counter where two men are standing, and they say, sorry, there is no women's section. For a long time in our world, we have had no women's section. It has been the man all the way, not just in India, but everywhere else. So now we are realizing that there are indeed other voices to be heard, other needs to be addressed, and other rights to be respected. And that, when it reaches the desired level, we may, with some confidence, say we have kind of coming close to gender justice. When I was practicing and also when I was a judge, there would be many applications filed by women in family courts for transfer of their petition from one court to another court which was more accessible to them. See, there are difficulties inherent in access. The man would come by himself. The woman, especially, I have seen only my state, they will always be accompanied by somebody. And if they are persons who are perhaps daily wages earners, let's say, then 2 daily wages are lost. Yeah? So they will ask for transfer. Invariably, it will be granted. Sometimes even Supreme Court heard transfer petitions and ordered it. And sometimes I would wonder, do the judges and the lawyers think that they have ticked the boxes as far as gender justice is concerned by just ordering a transfer application? That is really an individual instance. That's not changing the jurisprudence. And it is only when jurisprudence and the way one looks at this gender that we can say that justice is achieved. Now I will also talk about one flip side. Recently, this young man who died by suicide is in the news. And several allegations are made against the woman. I'm using the word allegations. I do not know whether they are backed by evidence. But just suppose those allegations are in fact true. Do you all have any idea of how much injustice it has caused to the silent women who suffer daily? Because all it requires is for people to say, look, this is what happens. But this is not what happens. Many women don't go to courts. Many women prefer to stay silent and suffer it. Then, is justice only what is practiced in courts? No. Justice is what you all practice every day in your own homes. One judge whom I respect very much, he's in the Kerala High Court, Mustaq Muhammad. One day he told me, he calls me Akka because I'm older, okay, much older. So he said, Akka, I prepare for my cases the previous night. And in the morning I am rushing to the court. So when do I have time for my family? So I believe she asked him, he had just then become a judge. So when are you going to retire? So he said, am I doing justice? So justice is something, it's not just happening in courts between 10 and 4:30. It's what happens every day. Once at a Women's Day the Women's Day function at one nationalized bank, the manager was very pleased with himself. He said, in our bank, we have the grievance committee, everything is according to law, nothing. Then I said, you have branches all over India, isn't it? Yeah. Then I said, do all the branches, even in the northeast corner, have a good toilet for women? He said, I think so. I said, unless that is there, your bank has not achieved equality. Then I said, you see, they usually in these gatherings, I mean, especially if it is office, the men will sit on one side and the women will sit on another side. And then I said, yes, you are all doing the gender justice between 10 and 5. Tell me how many of you, as soon as you go home, put up your feet and ask the woman to make coffee. And how many actually go make coffee for your partner? No hand rose. So that's where gender justice stands. Thank you.
Gender justice. Anand is giving me his mic. It is. Your question was, could you just repeat the question once again? My journey as a judge or lawyer? Yes.
Lawyer, judge,
Yes.
observation of the universe.
Yes. See, I am a Malayali. So most of you know that in Kerala, it's a matriarchal system. Now, this matriarchal system is very nice to hear. But the person who actually controls the matriarchal system is the eldest son. So what we have is only property. But we do not have any right to how we deal with the property. My brother has to take the decision for me. Of course, with the Hindu Succession Act, now we follow the Hindu Succession Act. But I come from a very conservative family where, though I am the only daughter, I have 2 elder brothers. So I'm starting my journey I start my gender justice from there. So my mother is a typical Malayali lady who believes that the sons are a step above the daughter. I may be a judge of the Madras High Court, but still I'm her daughter first. Now, honestly, when I was growing up, I never thought there was anything wrong about the system because I generally grew with the system. My brothers really spoiled me. I mean, I had lovely brothers and they took care of me, though my parents were very strict. So I really did not understand the concept of this gender discrimination because I didn't have that. I didn't have the thing in school. I did not have that when I entered college. When I came into my profession also, I did not suffer this gender discrimination because I got into an office where all of us were treated equally, and I also had the benefit of, I worked along with the men in the office. And one thing I found was when we entered, people like Madam and all were the very few women, you could literally count women on your fingers. That was but they were all very strong women. Nobody would take them lightly. They were very strong women. So, even the women whom we looked up, Madam OK Sridevi, you had Mohana, Vaigai, all these people, very strong women. So this gender discrimination, basically, I did not experience while I was growing up, while I was in the profession. But then, when you started your work as a lawyer, initially I had 1 or 2 cases that came from the family court, and I decided that this is not my cup of tea, because I realized that there was an entirely different society where a woman didn't have a voice. She was taken for granted. She was taken for granted not only by her husband and her in-laws, even the children felt, if it's the kitchen work, it is only Amma who had to do it. Appa had nothing to do with the kitchen work. So that was when I first realized that there was something called, yes, there is a discrimination. And like how Swarna said, now we are more conscious about it because we have more number of women coming into the profession. And I feel that men are feeling a bit uneasy about this, women coming into the profession. And now if the statistics as far as the judicial officers are concerned in the lower judiciary, we have the women far ahead of the men. So I feel basically it's when this insecurity steps in that you have this kind of a discrimination that is being practiced. And another thing which I found in working as a lawyer also, I think that we should not expect any favors because of our gender. We must be ready to work. I'm a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. I don't think of yourself as a lady lawyer or as a male. That is one way in which I thought, that was how I was, and I didn't have this discrimination. Madam was talking about this, our question about toilets. We're all talking about women and men. We have, in fact, our High Court has some transgender lawyer now. Now, this gentleman, I do not know whether I say gentleman or, but he's more oriented towards the male thing. So he said we wanted separate toilet for us. And this request was placed, and the building committee has now agreed to give a separate toilet. Now the next question which we felt was, if we have a separate toilet for them, would they be discriminated? So we had asked our registrar administration to ask him this question. Do you want a separate thing to be named? How would you feel? The answer he gave was, already the people are ridiculing us. By putting a separate name, at least we get a separate toilet. So at least that, to that extent, our dignity is preserved, is what he said. So my journey, I've only now started hearing this word, gender justice. So that's my take on my journey.
When my young friend told me that he's going to organize something like this, I decided one thing. I will not prepare anything for this, either by writing it in a paper or even mentally. And I will test myself and put questions to myself as to whether I am fit enough to talk about gender justice. It's a very, very important question which every male has to ask himself. It's very easy to use flowery words, quote from judgments, quote from big thinkers, but then if you are not that inside, it's impossible to convey this concept called as gender justice. So I thought that in my mind, I'll stand naked and see how deep within me, whether I truly respect women, whether there are seeds which even today pop up and makes me discriminate, even if I don't show it outside, whether is it happening inside me, are the seeds available, is it looking for an appropriate time to bloom as a big tree? After all your gender justice talking, all sorts of lectures, suddenly the ego will say that after all she is a woman. What is what we say in Tamil. And therefore I thought that I have to be very, very careful in what I am speaking here. I always believe that what you are inside, if you are able to tell it out, it will go and reach the audience. Or else it will stop with your applause and nothing else will happen. So, in my journey, it's good that I started with a co-ed school. So, there I started having interactions with girls and all that. And for a 80s or a 80s co-ed or a 70s co-ed, it was not really co-ed. But then you had girl students studying with you. And to an extent you are able to interact, you know how to at least move with a girl. And I have seen guys who have studied only in boys' school. They will look at girls like some aliens. They will have their own imaginations about girls. So at least I did not have that disadvantage when I started my career. Number one. Number two is, fortunately I come from North Madras, which is considered to be a labor side, a place where there are many laborers. And so our cricket match there will be at least 2 girls in the team who will come from some Matutolum, who will come from some place where these are all places where it's below middle class. So therefore I had the advantage of even Bambaram. We used to play with girls. Pandi, at least I have played Pandi with girls. So this is one major advantage which I had when I was growing up. Unfortunately for me, I was also growing up in a joint family consisting of 18 persons. Of course, with a single toilet and a single bathroom. And there we will see that it's the man who will be given the first priority. He will be the first to go and have bath. Even for a toilet, he is given priority. So he will be the first who will be given priority, even though a woman would want to. So those things are all subconsciously getting into me. It's not consciously I'm looking at it. Definitely subconsciously it is getting into me. So that's where I grow and I come into this field of law. I had the greatest person whom God has sent to me, which is my wife Usha. And she was the one who really taught me what your gender is. She exposed me very badly in many areas. And it's good that she exposed me. She used to point blank tell me that, so this is what you look at a woman. This is what your impression is about a woman. So this is, and therefore she was my guru insofar as understanding what gender justice is all about. And it's good that you have a vociferous wife there. She'll point blank ask questions. So that's another step which I took when I got into this profession and started practicing, etc. And in my journey as a judge, after I get into, those are places where I found that there is still gender discrimination prevalent. There is no doubt about it. I'll just give one instance and end up. There was one complaint which comes to me which says that there is a lady judge in a particular district who is being teased, who is being followed, who is being virtually wowed by some male advocate. When this lady judge sits and dictates judgment in the court at 5:30, he will be sitting there. And he will be making all sorts of signs. So I called the district judge. I asked the district judge what's happening. And district judge, my dear friends, is a woman judge. And she tells me, sir, what to do, sir? She is a very good-looking girl. She is a very good-looking girl and it happens to all good-looking girls. Is the reaction which I got from the district judge. I said, what are you saying? Is that an answer which I expect from a district judge? Is it an answer that she is a good-looking girl? And so what I did was, I took that as a cue and I spoke with many of my sister judges in the High Court. My sister judges had many stories to talk about. They did tell me that we also had some problems like that. And when we came to the High Court and informed about it, we were asked to just not take it very seriously and just move on. So that's what judges at that level have experienced, and you call that as a position of power. And in a position of power, what you see happening is that you'll have to adjust to certain things. So you have your Article 15 in the Constitution, you have all sorts of laws protecting women, you have all sorts of judgments of the Supreme Court, you have all judgments of the High Court, everything is happening around us. But the question which a man has to put to himself every time is, am I fit to talk about gender justice? Am I treating women with respect as a co-human being? Am I discriminating it? Till a man starts asking himself these questions and he at least identifies that he is lacking somewhere and I'll have to get out of it. That, I think, is the true gender justice that a man can ever do. And there is no use in a man holding a mic and talk about gender justice, about Article 15.3, how it is expansive than Article 16.4. All those are fantastic. But then what is that you are doing at your home? How is it that you are treating your own co-staff in your court? How is it that you are treating your own sister judges who are with you? What is your impression about them? Are you treating them with respect? Or in your mind you think that, okay, having been a woman, you became a judge. Is that going in your mind? If all that is happening, I think the man must first improve himself, must first unlearn it, must first get over it, and then start talking about gender justice outside. Thank you.
Since three speakers have stuck to Swarna's script in the interest of diversity, I will be somewhat different. Anand, you spoke about being in a co-ed school. I went to a boarding school, exclusively boys' school. And the only time we got to sit next to a girl was in the annual debate with St. Anne's, which was a girls' school, which I think explains why I became an expert debater. I then went on from the Hyderabad Public School to Elphinstone College, Bombay. I entered the inter-arts class, a class of 111, 105 girls, 6 boys, which stayed the same for 3 years. And believe me, I have emerged with a healthy respect for women, both by choice and by survival. But seriously, I think justice flows from equality. Equality is the measure, equality is the goal, and I think equality is the gold standard. We must recognize that we have started out with gross inequality. Across the world, voting, participation, opportunities for education, employment, positions held, and social safety. It is also true that a number of these parameters we have improved, in some of them quite substantially, in some others not so much. We are 4 members of the legal profession here, and I may just highlight a little bit to show you what the law can do. I think the law, the judiciary, can play a pivotal role in advancing gender equality, especially in the area of personal laws, because they reflect deep-seated cultural traditions and beliefs, and it's very difficult to shake them. But one force which can shake them is a court and a court order. And the instrument the court uses is the Constitution. And the principles the court uses are the principles of justice, equity, equality, and fairness. That is why you have judgments like in Sharia Banu's case, the Supreme Court invalidates triple talaq, instant triple talaq. Why in Shah Banu's case, they adopt a gender-friendly principle for maintenance. Why in Mary Roy's case, they said, we'll use the Constitution to ensure equal inheritance rights for Christian women. So you're changing the personal law by using the Constitution, and that is the power that judges have. One more aspect. There is talk of a uniform civil code. I think without having a uniform civil code being enacted in a manner which is fearful to minorities, which is seen as transgressing their religious freedoms, the judiciary can promote the adoption of uniform principles such as equal inheritance, maintenance, and custody rights across different personal laws. This does not need the imposition of a uniform civil code. It is, I think, what is called, I would call it a soft approach. Incorporate these rights, incorporate the values that these rights represent, and do the changes within those personal laws. So as I speak, you realize that there's lots for the court. There is a lot also for those who come to the court, because the court is not a self-activating mechanism. It is a mechanism which is activated by people who come to the court. And many people, you have youngsters, such as the one who went to court for the Information Act 66A case. It is youngsters who came to the court and petitioned. So there is a role for those who have to come to court. Another role, of course, is for the court to guide legislative reform. You see, in our system, where is the voice of wisdom? We do not have elder statesmen. We do not have the public philosophers. Inevitably, that's a role which has to be played by the court, the voice of the wise man or the wise woman. May not even be in the instant case passing a judgment, but rendering advice to the legislature. But there is no other repository of the wise voice. There is some perhaps in columns in newspapers, but judges, I think, have a very, very powerful voice. So am I close to finishing? Almost. Then I will save the best for later.
You know, in the introduction, Ashwin said wonderful things about these four people, but as I listened to them, I was thinking that the things that don't get listed on a CV are the sort of innate sense of honesty and fairness. You know, you're reflecting with such candor on your own experiences and processes, and I think that that brings a lot to a conversation like this. I'm actually going to, because you were all such wonderful time managers, I'm going to abandon my structure and do what you wanted, which is to have a conversation. I'm going to ask you about persistent challenges, things that when you started your career were problems that recurred, that came up in your cases, that came up in the courts, and that continued to come, as well as new things that people are talking about, obviously related to gender justice? Because those of us that have been thinking about these issues a while, working on them in different spheres, there is, I think sometimes our instinct is pessimism. Nothing has changed. So much needs to be done. But it's also true that when people sometimes call me from abroad and say, India's going to the dogs, think of all the people who wake up in the morning every day and still file that FIR, still write that petition, still file the... So there's a sense of change and no change that I perceive, and I'd like to hear how you feel about this as well. And I'll just now open up the floor and we can segue to an open discussion from there.
Now, this part will be just what I faced. Okay, I came to law very late after my marriage and my children, and I joined my husband's office. And the clients who came, for at least 2 years, I was invisible, because this lady can't be serious. She's just sitting there. So we'd rather go to the men juniors. That's what they did. And then they finally realized that I'm not there just to pass time. And that's when they actually saw me. That's the fate of many women all over the world. We are invisible. Now, then what happened was I continued practicing as my husband's junior. Then my husband died. And you won't believe it, the clients who trusted me and stayed with me were what we call the Mofussil clients. The corporate clients, quite a few left, because they didn't want to entrust their case to a woman. Whereas the Mofussil clients were sure this Amma will do justice for us. So we don't know how the sense of justice occupies the minds of people. Then I became a judge, and one of the judgments that I and Justice Shivanyanam authored was the judgment which said that the homemaker's work has to be economically quantified. Okay, it had not been done before. Immediately, two of my colleagues, both men, I'll tell you who they are, Justice Mishra and Justice Ravirajapandian, called me and said, "Oh, we've often thought of that, but why didn't we think of giving that judgment?" Because that kind of fact situation must have come before them too. I think that's because this is the life I have lived, so I'm able to talk about it. Not to take away from any of the great male-authored pro-gender judgments, but there is a case to be argued for what we have lived, and hence a case to be argued for diversity on the bench.
What Mrs. Prabha Sridevan said is correct. The clients, the minute they see it's a lady, they're a little reluctant to come to you initially. But like how I said in my office, from day one, I was given the clients were asked to come and discuss with me. But you can see that they are so reluctant, they don't come out telling you what their facts are. But once they realize who you are and that you're serious about your work, then they straight away come to Amma only. Then Ayya goes behind. And with reference to now as a judge also, in fact, as a lawyer, I didn't feel this gender discrimination. But as I have come up the ladder to this place, now I sense gender discrimination. And I'm sure Anand will also agree to this. Committees which are serious committees, we are not there in it. We are not there in it at all. Because the men feel that it is they alone who can take the right decision, and you can't let it to a woman because she is not competent. So it is the male mindset which feels that it is a woman, that the woman cannot look into it. If it is given to us, I'm sure we can execute it in a much better fashion than what the men is. Can you believe? Can you believe that even the quarters of the judicial officers, it's the men who decide what has to be constructed. The lady judge is not consulted at all about that. They know how a kitchen has to be arranged. So, so this is where I feel, it is at this stage in my life where I do feel that there is some kind of a gender discrimination.
Continuing from where my sister left, I think when man gets more power, the testosterone acts more. I'll just continue from where she left. Why is it that a women judge will be put only in gender discrimination committee or the workplace sexual harassment committee? They are chosen for certain committees, and that's where they are expected to work, or that's where they are expected to be the committee members, or on default, if they are taken into another committee, they will not even be allowed to talk in that committee. It's important that people in judiciary holding constitutional positions come and talk about it outside. There is no use in trying to shrug it under the carpet. So therefore, it's very important that, and it's this constitutional, the persons holding this constitutional post who are speaking so much about gender neutrality, speaking so much about the bias, and then what is that they are practicing? That's what I said even initially. That's exactly what I said initially. So this is one important factor which every man, the test which I said when I spoke initially, every man must ask himself, is he fair? Is he giving that respect to the woman? Is he considering that a woman is also equally capable, if not more than what he can contribute to any part of the functioning of the judiciary? The answer is mostly no. Even when the body of judges sit and discuss about an important issue, the mics never go to women judges. Even if it goes, some man judge will shout down and take away the mic. These are all realities. You may not be knowing what is happening, but this is reality. And I always believe in speaking reality. Sometimes people may feel very uncomfortable that a person in the system is talking about it. There is no use in talking after retirement. I believe in that. And whatever I face out of it, I have no problems at all. At least for the future, somebody will say that yes, some judge spoke about this. Some judge acknowledged the fact that this is happening at the highest of positions. If this is happening at the highest of positions, please think about what will happen down the ladder. So this is a very, very important factor which has to be kept in mind. And in your travel as a judge, what you find is that the majority of the district judiciary, today we have at least 70% of judges in the district judiciary who are women. Not only in Tamil Nadu, but across India. Across India. You know the reason why? I have thought through it. The reason is that it's difficult to practice as an advocate before the court as a woman. So they qualify themselves and show to men that, look, we will sit as judges now. You have no other option. Argue before me. And more women occupying that position will also pave way for more women getting into the profession and becoming advocates also. The appreciation of a woman, a lady arguing before the court, unless and otherwise the judge who is sitting, that male judge with that power sitting there, is not looking at her as a woman, is not looking at her as a lady, is looking at her as any other advocate. If that is done, there is no problem for her. Or else, women who forcefully argue in a court, they will slowly go and whisper in the ears of his brother judge, look at the arrogance. Look at the arrogance. Sometimes women will have to express themselves in that way, or else men will never listen to it. That's why you will find that women in power, when you get closer to them and talk with them, they'll be so nice. But when they get into that position, you will find them to be very strong. The reason is not to exhibit their arrogance. The reason is that you man will never listen to them unless you show it. So this is one important factor which I've seen, and I'm sure that going forward, the women have now occupied a major portion in the district judiciary, and this is going to create a situation where probably after my lifetime, I don't know, 50% or more of the High Court judges will be women. There is no doubt about it at all. Thank you.
Well, let me dampen that a bit. District judiciary, sure, very healthy percentage of women judges. Come to the high courts. We are 64 judges here, Chennai? Yeah. 64. We have 13 women judges. I thought we were the best, till I checked and realized the Punjabis are actually doing better. They have 13 out of 52. But it is these two states which are well above the national average. I mean, after that, the figures drop abysmally. 7, 8, 5, 6, 1, 0, 0. Now, let's come to the shocker, the Supreme Court. The fount of wisdom from which, all preaching flows. 33 judges, 2 women. Now, if you want to put your money where your mouth is, that's what you should have done. We had a first-rate judge here, Vijaya Thailramani. She was Chief Justice. For no apparent reason, she wasn't taken to the Supreme Court, treated very badly. But I'm going to talk about one more instance. One of our most liberal, progressive, and fiercely independent judges is Justice Nagaratna, now on the court. She becomes Chief Justice in 2026. But guess what? She has a term of 1 month. Now I boil. I'm enraged, and I ask myself, what were the people who appointed her at that time? What were they thinking? That you make a big show that a woman is finally Chief Justice of India, and then you reduce it to mere tokenism by giving her a 1 month? I mean, it is the most absurd and unjust thing, reflective of a whole host of attitudes. So if at all there is some learning that needs to be done, it is, it has to be learning by the Supreme Court.
And that point can actually be extended to many things, including our recent, the triumphantly announced Women's Reservation Bill, which also will be like Justice Nagaratna's term. Mostly for show.
It's 33%.
Yeah.
It's 33%.
But after delimitation, after the census, after this, after that, so maybe not in my lifetime, But also on that note, we're talking about the reservations and women in positions of leadership. There is nothing to stop a political party from actually nominating women. You don't need a law to make a change. So you can make a speech about the law, but to make a change is much harder. I think we can now open the floor for questions and comments. And I would like to invite Etienne to make a few comments to start the discussion. Shall I give you the mic, or would you like the lectern?
Well, I feel humbled to speak after this eminent panel of judges and lawyers, and I learned a lot from hearing from you. But since we are at the Alliance Française, I thought it proper to introduce you to a French word you may not know. The word is parité. So what is parité? It is one of those untranslatable French words like laïcité that finds its way into political debates in Europe when they are used without translation. So parité in common language basically means 50-50 or full equality. It is not a constitutional principle, although the constitutional reforms of 1999 and 2008 are known as parity laws. It is not synonymous to a quota system. Also, although an allocation of seats for a percentage of women is commonly considered as a way to improve and achieve parity, it is different from affirmative action. It may have some relations, but again be different from the Indian system you call reservation for women. So again, parité is parité. And if I may remind you of the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games in Paris this summer, we had several principles and ideals that were showcased in the opening show. You may remember the French Republic's motto, liberté, égalité, fraternité. So we also had sororité, we also had diversité, and we had parité. So this is my very modest offer to the debate and contribution to the promotion of the French language. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. Maimouna? I'm going to place a 30 to 45 second limit for comments so that everyone gets to speak.
Thank you so much to the panel for highlighting issues which have plagued us as women. Having practiced law for more than 30 years as a woman lawyer, I understand the struggles which have been spoken about, starting with how late the cause list is published. You know, how does a woman handle work-life balance when the cause list itself is published after 6 o'clock? Women have to rush back home. Starting with that, and even the principles that are applied and the parameters that are applied in selecting judges and even senior advocates. Look at the number of senior advocates, women senior advocates we have. It is, to say the least, pathetic. Because the parameters which are applied are basically very male-centric, because they say only women who are strong in a litigation practice can even stand before the panel and be selected as a woman judge or a woman senior advocate. And according to, you have to have published articles and published, cases in famous, publications as a woman lawyer in litigation. And we already see the number of women just petering out with as time passes and as life becomes harder and harder, being mothers, trying to have this work-life balance. So for me, I find it very unfair as a woman that even the parameters that are applied for selection, like Justice Anand Venkatesh said, to committees, to becoming a judge, to becoming a senior advocate, are so gender biased. Because I don't believe those parameters should be applied across the line because they are very pro-male. So I have a lot to say on the subject, but I'm going to restrict myself. Thank you for giving me more than 35 seconds.
The floor is open. Is someone?
Hi, sir. Hi, ma'am. I have this question which I felt was not addressed by our panel. What are your thoughts on gender roles, like gender roles with respect to male? If a man is not expected to be the earner of the family, if there are no gender roles in that respect, they will. What are your thoughts if that were the case? So yeah, that was my question.
We'll take a few questions and comments and then invite the panel to respond.
Hi, I'm Kanmani. I'm the advocate that Justice P.T. Asha was talking about. I'm the person who wrote the letter for asking for gender-neutral washrooms in the High Court, and I just would like to thank that that this is the first High Court in the country that even Punjab and Haryana High Court is only labeled persons with disabilities washroom, relabeled it as transgender washrooms, while we have asked for gender-neutral washrooms. Sorry for extending beyond 35 seconds. I'm just going to quickly wrap up. My question to you is, recently we have had a Himachal Pradesh High Court judgment, a temporary order granting bail to an accused, where they have said, no, transgender is different from woman, and there are no transgender women. And they've granted bail. I'm not on bail. My question is, unfortunately, most judges, law officers, advocates do not understand transgender persons, do not understand Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act. Now, if we talk of gender justice, we have not had even a single woman Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I'm dreaming of maybe in 30, 40 years, 50 years, a transgender person becoming a High Court judge or a Supreme Court Chief Justice. How do we go from here? Because there are no sensitizations that are happening. I was the only student in 3,000 students in Delhi University, openly trans. And it was hard, really, really hard. So that's all. Thank you.
Kanmani, it's nice to meet you. In fact, let me be very honest. It was only when Hari had put across this paper that I realized that there's such a problem for you all. To that extent, I have also been very insensitive. It was only when this problem was actually brought to our notice, I realized that yes, we have to think about you also. So the reason why I asked was, and your answer to Hari had really touched me a lot. So I would like to apologize to you first.
So there were two questions. I'll first answer your question. To even think a woman on par with man, it has taken centuries together, and it has only started happening now. Even now we are talking about whether I am fit enough to talk about gender justice and all that. And what you are talking is something beyond that, about which nobody has even thought through. Nobody even thinks that a trans man or a trans woman, and nature has endowed them with that quality, but they always think that it's an aberration. So it's a mistake on the part of the nature. So therefore the majoritarian folks think that they are people who need not be cared at all. And that's what has happened at least very recently, till very recently. Till the 90s there was nothing. How is that we used to address them, etc. So if it has taken so much of time, even for women who were part and parcel of the system, who were living right with the man to get the dignity and the respect. I'm sorry, but it's going to take some time for you. It's going to take some time for this community. But one thing is very, very clear. I speak with a lot of youngsters. Youngsters are able to appreciate and accept and become proactive about it. So therefore, it's going to expedite the process. These old bandicoots will all vanish. And you have bright set of youngsters who perfectly understand what it is. Like what my son told me before the order. I spoke with my son also before I delivered Sushma. He said, are you a boomer? The first question he said that's the first day I heard this word boomer. Boomer is somebody who was born in 60s, basically. I said, why are you saying this? He said, who are you to say whether right has to be given to them, whether they have to be treated well? Who are you? Meaning that was quite a shocking question which he asked me. He said, just leave them as they are. Recognize them as they are. And he was a sample of that age group which has already started understanding this issue. So therefore, the struggle is going to go on, but you are going to have more supporters in order to pave way for a respectable life for all of you. There is no doubt about it at all. And the question about what happens if a man sits in the home and women goes for, I'll be the happiest person. I have no problems with that at all. The only thing is that my wife must be able to tolerate what I cook. That will be the major. So till now, what has happened is that, look at the setup. The setup is that the male goes for work, he earns money. It's the woman who takes care of the home and the children. So that is the setup that is available till now. So for this to change, for a man to really take reversal of roles, or even to take an equal participation in the running of the family, that by itself has to start from mothers talking with their sons. The mothers will have to talk with their sons and say that this is what it is. Every time I find my wife telling my son that you will know your mother's greatness once you get married. And she tells him, a time will come when you have to participate at least 50%. So better, jolly well, learn to do all these things. It's not a threat. It's a good advice that has to be given to the... So most of the injustice to women sometimes is caused, I'm sorry, by women. By women. And that is the reason why the boy, like what Asha said, that the mother has this mindset that the boys must be given some sort of a preference. Then why is it happening? It's happening because that mindset has already percolated into a woman, and the woman constantly starts acting on it, and that gives a better advantage for a man to continue behaving like that. So this reversal of roles about which you are talking, it's going to take a long time, but it's actually happening in the present generation. I don't know whether they cook, but at least the husband allows the wife to order it from Swiggy. So to that extent it's happening. Thank you.
One point of dissent. It's not enough if the mother alone talks to the son. The father should talk to the son. And the father should lead by example. He should lead by example so that the son knows that he should lift his finger too.
I agree.
Just one moment. Just a reflection on, gaining acceptance for transgender rights and entitlements. I think two things are necessary. One, and I would say especially for youngsters, not just youngsters, but is to be vocal. The other, to be unabashed. And the third, to bear in mind this lovely French expression we were given today, parity. But you might also expect some help from the law, especially from judges like this. Don't forget that the Supreme Court passed an atrocious judgment on the same-sex marriage case, where they not only negated marriage, but they even negated civil union. And another lot left it to the hands of a parliament, and we all know how parliament will take a view on this. But it was one judge in a high court, who stepped up to the plate and who said, well, I will still introduce light from darkness, and created the concept of a civil agreement which could be registered, which had to be registered, which had to be respected by the state, and from which entitlements flowed. That's Anand Venkatesh. So judges like him, judges like Justice Asha, are really crucial and pivotal, in this. But as I said again, judges do not function in a vacuum. They respond to public sentiment. And it's up to people like a whole lot of you to create that public sentiment. Proudly, loudly.
Right, before passing it back out, I just wanted to say that patriarchy actually hurts. When we talk about gender justice, it's not just justice for women or justice for marginalized gender identities. It's actually, patriarchy hurts everyone. The young man who has to find a job rather than paint, somebody else who can't learn dance, everybody's affected by this. So gender justice is a win-win. It's not something to advocate for one gender alone. I just wanted to add that to this conversation as well. We have a question there, comment?
I had one question. Many of you spoke about numbers in terms of representation. In that, we are making an assumption that the women judges who will be there will pass progressive judgments on behalf of women. And I'm not sure whether that's the case, because when there is, a particular gender in power, let us say, or a power structure, where everybody tries to kind of adhere to the power structure. Each individual judge, just as women know, either in the private or the public sphere, has to negotiate power for themselves. And in that process of negotiation, will they truly pass judgments which are progressive is a question that we need to think about. The second thing is there any body in India, a non-partisan kind of a citizen body or a legal body, that gives information to the regular citizens about whether a particular judge, regardless of whether they are male or female, have passed judgments which, either a score of some sort or some kind of a information about whether it advances a progressive agenda on behalf of women. If there is something like that that people keep track of, that we can easily access as citizens.
Your first question, whether a woman judge will pass orders in favor of a woman. When I sit there, I'm not a woman judge. I only look at the case on hand. And if I'm able to do something within the four corners of the law, yes, I would definitely do. And if there's some place where I can think out of the box, yes, I would do. So therefore, your question that just because it is a woman sitting there, she has to, no. No, that she said whether, your question was whether a woman judge will. No, correct. So if the number of women judges also, so The fact that we've had men judges also, there are some of my brother judges who have also given, judgments in favor of women. So it's basically, I don't think the gender of the judge would really matter. And if you're going to increase the number of women judges also, it is not going to. It is, after all, the subject that is before us that we look into. No, was that what you meant? Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that when we talk only about numbers, we are also making an assumption that
She's quite loud.
That because of the gender, that the women judges will advance a progressive agenda on behalf of women. We're making an assumption. I'm not saying that that is the case or not the case. I'm just saying we're all making an assumption that when women judges are increased across the board, that there will be a bigger progressive agenda on behalf of all women. So to understand the role of both male and female judges in advancing a progressive agenda for society, I was asking, is there some kind of a place where we can access that
we don't have.
Yeah.
That we don't have.
That for all of you who breathe and live the law every day, this is something you read and you're always on the know. But for people like us, it might, I was just thinking that I would love to read something like that.
But so I think now we are all on, you go to Google, you get all the judgments, you'll be able to,
Assuming that practicing lawyers in the High Court would have that informal understanding of who is a progressive judge.
That is not available to a layperson.
That's not you. No, that's what you mean.
But my opinion is that assumption has good grounds. That is why we plead for diversity, because then the shape and the tone of jurisprudence has to change. They won't be talking of that wilting flower was disrupted by this male. That kind of nonsense won't happen in judgments. That's a very male language. So when the whole face of the judiciary changes, I think it will.
Is it the weak no versus the forceful no?
There are two parts in your question. I'll first answer the second part. Is there a mechanism in which they assess? The male judges will set it aside. The male judges will not allow all that to happen. They will get very badly exposed if you... So there is absolutely nothing in the mechanism. Whether women are able to really be more proactive, having come to that position, today you don't have a mechanism to assess it. But if you carefully travel through the orders which they pass, I'll just give one example of Honorable Justice Prabha Sridevan's one judgment. The judgment is about this. This is about a man marrying an elder sister, right? And you all know, once the elder sister does not bear a child, the younger sister comes in. He marries the younger sister also. And after a particular point of time, the elder sister dies. And the man was given pension since he is a government employee. After his demise, the younger sister who married seeks for a family pension. These are broadly the facts. Where the law, as it is, it says that a second wife is not entitled. So that presumption is second wife is the wife who had married when the first marriage is in subsistence. That's the assumption. Now, if a male judge had dealt with it, I'm just giving you an illustration. That's all. If a male judge had dealt with it, he would have said, yes, the second marriage had happened during the subsistence of the first marriage. Therefore, this is no marriage in the eye of law. Consequently, there is no question of giving family pension to that lady. But here comes the pro-action on the part of the judge. The judge said that fine, she had married. After the demise of the elder sister, this younger sister continued to live with this man for 12 years. So virtually she was living with him as a wife, and she had the status of a wife as on the date from which the elder sister died, till the demise of this man after 12 or 15 years. Therefore, she must be construed as a lawful wife of this man, and she will be entitled for a family pension. Look at what the pension rule said, and look at what the judge interpreted it. That's the beauty of this diversity once it sets in. The diversity must set in first. Don't expect some magic to happen just because some 8 women judges come into. No, it's not about male judge and the female judge. It's the diversity which will count. Recently, was one wonderful judgment of Justice Manjula, where she talks about the Vishaka judgment, which paved way for the sexual harassment in the workplace. It started with a judicial pronouncement. Our lawmakers were not even aware that there is something which was happening. It started with a judicial pronouncement. The Supreme Court used its power under Article 142, and after something like 25 years, it became a law. The judgment that was written by Justice Manjula was, there was a Vishaka judgment. There is a posh law now. And what is the reality? If you look at that judgment, it is pathetic. The reality is pathetic. All these committees are all eyewash. Nothing like that is happening, and the woman who used to suffer continues to suffer. So, what's important is that it required a female judge to look at it. A male judge, after looking at it, would not have come to this conclusion. Look at one very serious, very recent order of Justice Nagaratna. It talks about a woman suffering from menopause. And she was repeatedly telling the advocate about this, and he didn't know it. Did you know what she said? You should face that menopause. Then you will understand what we are talking about. So, this is what will happen if the diversity sets in. It's very important that the women judges get into the system and the diversity starts happening, and there are areas which a woman will be able to appreciate more than men, particularly in issues relating to women, because at the end of the day they are inside a woman. So that diversity is very important. So for your question, it is very important that this is happening, but there is no mechanism to find out. You will have to read it and find it out, and today there is a lot of information that is also available.
Mindset also should be there. Even if it's a woman, unless she has that proactive mindset, it doesn't work.
I'm just going to use this platform to make a simple little request as an activist. I've also been on this workplace sexual harassment awareness and prevention treadmill for about 15 years, committees and so on. And the thing that offends me the most, beyond the actual fact of sexual harassment, is actually the term posh. There is nothing posh about sexual harassment, and you are all people who are influential and powerful, so I beseech you, I beg you, please use the words that are meant to be used. Let's call workplace sexual harassment, the law against workplace sexual harassment, the workplace sexual harassment prevention law. If we utter the words, and you started off by saying language was important, then we will actually take this serious, because posh sounds nice. Posh sounds like a corporate conference room with AC and someone bringing tea and biscuits. So this is just my small petition to you. Are there other, yes?
I must apologize because I'm going to change the subject. About 40 years ago, sociologists and economists found that there's a very interesting parity that goes on in Indian society. Working in the fields in Tamil Nadu, around Madurai, they found that agricultural laborers, who at that time were the predominant population in the rural areas, had employment for less than 180 days in a year, men or women. And therefore, in that particular class of people, the idea of marriage itself was something that was very fluid. and therefore there was true parity born of desperation between men and women. As you go up the ladder in terms of class and privilege, the middle classes and the upper middle classes then fall for what we call the middle class syndrome, which is where the woman plays a more submissive role in the daily life of the family. Is there, and many of those cases that one would think of for the agricultural labor population, I suspect never comes before a court. So I have a philosophical question here really. Is there some way in which the example of that parity, even though it is born of desperation, can be used by the court to advance the cause of parity?
See, in courts, we may want to do a lot of things, but we have to do it within the four corners of law. So we can take it as a cue and try to work it. Ultimately, the courts are the ones which passes orders. And we do not know how far this order is taken and implemented. We are talking about two different things here. One is the court passing an order. Second is how far it is being implemented. If it's implemented first, whether it is implemented regularly, a judge has no idea at all. So what is happening is that in many cases where orders are passed, where landmark judgments are given, which is applauded by the society and which is spoken to in the social media, in a week it's all gone. So one mechanism which which the Apex Court has evolved, which they found out and which we are practicing, is called as a continuing mandamus. It's called as a continuing mandamus. A continuing mandamus is where the court does not stop by passing an order. It keeps on checking its progress also. It keeps on checking its progress. For instance, I applied it in the Sushma case. Sushma case judgment was given in June 2022. We are almost in 25. This continuing mandamus is the only way in which you will be able to ensure that some progress is made brick by brick. But how many cases can you do it? How many judges will be willing to do it? The society must never think that it's the judges and the courts which will change the society. We can contribute a lot. We can pass orders. We can come up with concepts which will sound fantastic. But ultimately when it is implemented, it's not the judge who is going and implementing it. It's the state which implements it. It's the executive which implements it. So the implementation part is an issue. So apart from that, when it is applied, people must also be aware that there is something which has been passed like this. Today, with the amount of information that is bombarding us on a daily basis, there is nothing called as an important news, important judgment, or not an important judgment. Because howsoever sensational, now we are talking about a man who committed a suicide by making a lot of allegations about a lot of things in the system. In a week, it will all be gone. Just a week. Just look at what is happening. The social media as such has the flip side. This flip side is that nothing is being kept as important for more than a couple of days. If nothing is kept as important for more than a couple of days, as among the society, then the problem is that how far are we going to push it through? How far are we going to implement it? So it's good at a theoretical level to talk about all these things. On an implementation level, we need the support of a lot of other structures around us. If that is not happening, it will all remain in the paper. And the society must, I don't know how it will happen, but the society must at some stage remember important things that are happening around them. They should not be hopping from one important news to the next important news.
Just one point on you. See, the phenomenon you spoke about relationships when income levels are very, very low. If it forms part of a published paper or a report, then it is easier for a court to take cognizance and act on it and use that information in a judgment.
Good afternoon. This would be a good follow-up question for Justice Anand Venkatesh's answer to diversity and how there is no formal structure to evaluate the importance of such diversities. And also after ma'am's introductory note on how she looks at lawyers as lawyers and not as male and female lawyers, I was wondering about the importance of reservation to appoint judges rather than appoint them on merit, sir. I would like to take your opinions on that.
I think that's a brilliant one. You know, let's just toy with this idea of reservations. We have reservations for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, most backward classes, other backward classes. I think we should toy with the idea of a horizontal reservation for women across them. We should think about it. Because in the existing scheme of things, the reservation benefits that class. Whether we can stretch it so that the reservation benefits women in that class is, I think, an idea we should think about. And you can extend that. You can extend that idea to education opportunities. You can extend that idea to employment opportunities. So that's a huge basket. Subject for 3 discussions, I think. Within the judiciary, it's getting better. It's getting better. Certainly at the rate at which district judges are being appointed, you might find that a reservation works against women. Because people will then think, you know, we must get onto the other side. So it's getting better in the district judiciary, getting better in the high courts. The laggard in this is the Supreme Court. Let's hope and see within our lifetimes what happens. I do wish Nagaratna had 2 years, you know. I do wish she had 2 years. Such a shame.
So I have a question born out of more out of personal interest and selfish interest. Now, I have 2 daughters. I've been blessed with 2 daughters. Thank God I don't have a son. Now, see, my question is more as an example, an incident which happened to me. A question put to me by my daughter. The elder daughter is 22 years old now, and the younger one is 17. And the 17-year-old daughter says, I have a friend, Appa, I'm bringing home. His name is Krishna, but she is a girl. She wants to identify as a boy. So don't embarrass her, or don't embarrass him. Don't ask him any questions. I would rather you being absent. Go out. So that I don't want my friend to be embarrassed. No, I told my daughter, no, I'm not going to embarrass you. I just want to know more. Now, the reason why I'm asking you this is, personally, I don't want to go, I can't go consult Justice Asha or Justice Anand because they're judges and I can't afford Mr. Panchu. So, that leaves Justice Prabha. So what is the advice you'd give to bridge this gap between, I can speak for all the students of law school here. They have parents my age and Anand's age. How do you tell parents that this is what we are heading to? You must understand this, sensitize yourself to all this. How do you sensitize parents my age to all these things? Because for students, it will be commonplace. They have friends who they interact with. But for parents like us, it's these examples which open our eyes. Just a question.
I mean, this question is jumped on me, and I'm answering more as a not a thought out answer. But I think, but it's not just an advice to parents. Any relationship is two-way street. I think we should, a trust should be built that anything that I say will not be judged. And the parent is free to ask questions and the child should answer, and then I think it will resolve. But seriously, if she is bringing her friend home for the first time and she really wants you not to be there, I think you should respect that.
I did. And the second time onwards, she got the friend home when I was there, and we are good friends now.
So you just got to go with what your daughter wants, simple.
So I'm not going to charge you for this. But I'm wondering whether there are, good, sensitively made films on this. They are being made.
I'll be the last person to answer this.
He always wants the last one.
Again, writing the Sushma judgment, the last question which I put to me is, if tomorrow my son comes with a male partner, I straight put this question to my son and says that he is the one whom I am going to marry. What will be my reaction? I thought I will get depressed. And that's when I realized that when I write this order, I should not be writing this order with this preconceived notion about this, because it will be an utter lie. All those words in the order will be an utter lie. Nothing will be effective. So it requires a lot of understanding, basically. And with our preconceived notions about this, which we have gathered for the last 40 years or so, 45 years or so, it's very difficult to break that bubble. Because we have always considered this to be some sort of an aberration. We have always addressed it very differently. We have poo-pooed it. We have insulted it. The system has insulted it to the maximum level, including the cinemas, the medias, etc., etc., and the way we have treated them even amongst the general public. So we have only grown up in a situation like that for the last 40, 45 years. And to expect that we are going to dramatically change from this is a bit difficult. It's not that easy to break bubbles here. But it requires a lot of effort to break it and then even understand what this relationship is all about, what is that is running in their mind about their own identity. So it requires a lot of self-learning, and very few can do that. Since very few can do that, this is not going to be accepted by the society. That's why I find that you can bring laws in all this. Ultimately, the law must have a meaning. It must be able to be worked in the society. Think about those persons who are facing handicaps. I always give this example. How were we addressing them? Nondi, Lotta, Kullan. We give, and it used to be across the board. Nobody was even aware about what we were. It took such a long time for us to address them as differently abled people, to address them as special children. Paithyam is what we said, Aralusu. And we did not even care about using all these words, correct? At least I have used these words. I always first come up with my confession. I have used all these words. I have used worst words for trans men and trans women. So to really come out of this mindset and then to change yourself requires tremendous effort. And it's not that easy at all. So I can understand your predicament, and this predicament I also faced by putting a hypothetical question to me. It requires a lot of understanding.
And with that, we close the discussion for today. Thank you to all of you. I think one thing that I've learned again from listening to you is how in some sense this journey of seeking equality, seeking justice, actually is a personal journey first. The causes, we talk a lot about objectivity and distance, but they have to be personal. You have to really want to do the right thing. You have to want to be fair to people. And regardless of whether you do it in the judiciary or you do it elsewhere, I think it's the process of reflection and learning all the time, being open to being corrected in public, which I think is very pertinent to the last conversation we just had. So thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers for bringing us all together and giving us a chance to meet. I'm told the time is out, so yeah.
We have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, sir and ma'am. I have a comment and a question. So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for mentioning transgender community, because even while I was researching about gender justice, I'm ashamed to acknowledge that I failed to consider them. And I'd also like to appreciate our constitution while we are at it, because with the Roe v. Wade, overturning of Roe v. Wade, the first thing that happened the first thing that was axed in US was women's right. So women's right and gender justice, it's been enshrined in our constitution, so I hope that does not happen here. And my question is, while I was arriving here, I saw a LinkedIn post related to marital rape. So in that, the discussion with the recent passing of Atul Subhash, the discussion was if we criminalize marital rape, it's going to be misused. People are going to again abuse that law. So I would like to step into the minds of men. Do they think that gender justice have evolved into something that's anti-men, that resonates with anti-men sentiments? And do you think that just because a law is going to be abused, should we refrain from criminalizing marital rape?
2 minutes to somebody, any one person.
This question that you talked about men thinking about gender discrimination now being, taken up only on a woman's side. We had the gender sensitization committee. We had a program, which it was where we had sensitized people from the class 4 stage up to the registrars about gender sensitization. We had some programs. Now the first thing, I don't know, one of my staff says, என்னம்மா திருப்பி பொம்மநாட்டிக்கு வந்து இது கொடுக்கணும், உங்களுக்கு ஈக்குவாலிட்டி கொடுக்கணும், அதுதானே நீங்கள் கொண்டு வந்து நடத்த போகிறீங்க, இதுக்காக நாங்கள் வரணும். So that is the kind of mindset that was there. But slowly it has changed. That program did give us some good results where they have started looking at it a little differently.
The marital rape case. Now, I had the advantage of reading the entire judgment of Justice Shakdar. It was such a fantastic judgment. You have watched this. I am a movie buff, basically. So I hope you watched this movie called as the South Indian Kitchen. Great Indian Kitchen. That's exactly what marital rape is. That movie will tell you what a marital rape is. Marital rape is not about going and, raping the way we conceive it. So that movie exactly in a beautiful way explained what marital rape is all about. The man just wants to satisfy himself even without realizing the woman, where she is, what she feels about it, what amount of work she has done on a particular day, whether she is really interested. There are so many questions that are asked in that movie. It's such a wonderful movie. So, to put it as a concept, yes, there is something called as marital rape. I have no doubts about it at all. As I always say, how do we find it out in court? How do we implement it? That's where the task is. That's the most difficult task, because all laws are capable of being misused. So just because a law is capable of being misused, that does not mean that you will not bring that law. You will always bring that law. And wherever there is a misuse, you will be more careful in analyzing it and finding a solution. But in terms of marital rape, for a societal setup like us, just juxtapose it with 498A of the Indian Penal Code. Juxtapose it with many other enactments for women. See what has happened there. What has happened is that the advocates have got into the scene and they draft a complaint with all imaginations just to bring about an offense under section 498A. So if that is the imagination an advocate can have for a 498A, please do not give that imagination to the advocate when it comes to marital rape. All his perversities will come out. It's very difficult to find it out in a court. Whom do you explain? Who is going to understand it? Whether the woman will be able to explain this to a male judge? How will she explain that it is a rape? Where it became a rape? How it is a rape? So, as a concept, yes, there is something like this. But at an implementation point, it's very, very difficult in a present societal setup. So therefore, the judiciary must be very wary, at least in this area, is my opinion.
And with that, thank you. Over to you.
I'll just take a couple of sentences to appreciate today in itself. Because when we started the organization, Indian Society for Universal Dialogue, it was a gamble. We never knew whether people would actually respect and take the time and come for something of this sort. Especially just being students of law and a junior advocate, some people might come and tell us you have to go carry bundles instead of doing all these things. We'd be happy to carry bundles, but we'll also want to do things like this. But more importantly, I'd really like to appreciate the fact that when we approached each and every one of the panelists today, they were so humble and very kind to accept our invitation and made this happen. We are creating forums like this. As Mr. Panchu had mentioned, we need to be vocal about ideas and things that concern us as a society. And we're very happy that we were able to do this today. And we look forward to having more events in the future. And to give the vote of thanks, I'd call our Secretary General, Aruna Shri. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Aruna Shri, the General Secretary of the Indian Society for Universal Dialogue, and I take immense honor to present the vote of thanks today. To begin with, I think we had an exhilarating and thought-provoking conversation today. Thank you, Honorable Justice Prabha Sridevan and Honorable Justice P.T. Asha for reiterating the circumstances causing injustice to all genders. Thank you, Honorable Justice Anand Venkatesh, sir, for pointing out the challenges women face in the judiciary and how they turn it into their success. Thank you, Mr. Sriram Panchu, for sharing your rage that each of us have. I'm grateful to all the distinguished speakers today for taking their time out of their busy schedule to be here with us and enlighten us. My special thanks to Dr. Swarna Rajagopalan for her adept moderation. Your expertise steered the discussion in the right direction, enabling rich knowledge sharing for all of us. I'd like to take a moment to extend my sincere thanks to the revered guests of honor who have acceded to our invite and graced this august gathering with their presence. My heartfelt gratitude to our beloved Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar Sir, and our Registrar, Dr. Gauri Ramesh Ma'am, for supporting our initiative. We are more than grateful to Dr. Ranjit Oman Abraham Sir, our faculty advisor, for being a constant pillar of support and guiding us through the right path for this organization to achieve progress. My sincere thanks to Senior Advocate Mr. Om Prakash Sir for his invaluable guidance throughout the event. I'd be failing in my duty if I don't extend my heartfelt gratitude to the patrons of this event. Senior Advocate Mr. R. Parthasarathy Sir, Senior Advocate Mr. Raghvachari Sir, Senior Advocate Mr. Satish Parasaran Sir, and Senior Advocate Mr. M.S. Krishnan Sir. Your generous support has been instrumental in making this event a grand success. My sincere appreciation to Mr. Joseph Abhishek Singh from the Eagle Diaries for their contribution. I also thank the Alliance Francaise of Madras, particularly Dr. Patricia Terry Hart, the Director of the Alliance Francaise of Madras, and Mr. Praveen Kannanur, the President of the Committee of the Alliance Francaise of Madras, for providing us this auditorium for this event, and Mr. Partha for his technical support. I appreciate all the members of ISUD who worked tirelessly for smooth conduct of this event. Last but not the least, I thank all the attendees for their active participation and making this event a memorable one. Thank you.